On this Jeep Renegade guy, we're not even talking about a Jeep Renegade. In fact, we're talking about this, my 2016 Chrysler 200S. No, I did not buy this. This is actually a rental car. Um, it's actually a pretty nice rental car, and I'm glad I have it because my Jeep is yet again back at the dealer to get some warranty repair. Just crossed 35,000 miles, and it's back at the Jeep dealer for another round at trying to fix that dreaded four-wheel drive light. If you guys have watched the channel for a while, you know that it's been in a few times for this. I believe this is time number 4, but they always seem to fix it in some way, usually have some way of getting it back out there, and it works for a while before it decides to start acting up again. But this time, the part that they decided that we were going to need to get replaced on the car, that's on back order. So I've been given this Chrysler 200S for the next foreseeable future. When I last talked to him about a week ago, because I've had the car for a week and a half at this point, they let me know that they're not sure when the back order is going to be filled, so the dealer has the car until that happens. My service advisor said, you know, it could be a couple of weeks, it could be a couple of days. So I'm getting acquainted with this car. I like it quite a bit so far, and I just wanted to walk you through what the car is all about. Now, this is pretty interesting because Chrysler produces this and the Dodge Dart, both of which are pretty similar on the same platform. The Chrysler, of course, is the more upscale version. I mean, it's still a Chrysler, so it's no luxury car by any means, but it's quite nice on the inside and a considerable step up from my Sport Series Jeep Renegade. You know, the Sport model is, of course, the lowest level model that you can get, and this particular car that they've given me is the 200S, which is the Sport model. So this one has a 295 horsepower and I believe 265 foot-pound of torque V6, and then it's also made it up to a 9-speed ZF transmission, which works really nice, and we'll get into that in a bit. And it's powered through all 4 wheels. So it is a really nice car for us to go over. So we'll start with a walk around of the Chrysler 200. It is by no means a stunner, but it is a pretty nice looking car. I gotta say, I do like the styling. It's a bit soft in edges. You know, I think the rearward look of the car is maybe not the best look for this car, but overall pretty nice. This being the Sport package, it does have the nice large 19-inch wheels, spec'd with some Nexen tires, so you know, more basic tire, but what can you expect from a OEM spec? And then on the outside, it does have the really good looking LED lights that turn on. So if we go ahead and let the car start up, you'll see the LED lights come in and makes for a very nice looking car. Of course, I'm also pretty happy to have this keyless entry, something that I don't have on my Jeep. So we'll turn it back off, and that's overall a look of the outside of the car. One of the first things I'd like to talk about is the interior. Now, this is a keyless entry, so all you do is press right onto the door handle and you'll come right in. Now, the interior of the car is pretty nice looking. You know, it's fairly standard for many of the new Chrysler and Dodge products. But you've got this great front seat, which is a nice leather bolstered, but then some sort of cloth material on the inside. It does have power adjustments on the driver's side, but not on the passenger side. You, of course, got all of your auto lights, and on the steering wheel, you've got the controls for your phone, cruise control, and then, of course, just like all the other Chrysler products on the back, you're going to get the switches, or buttons rather, for the entertainment system. And then, of course, it's got Uconnect right on the screen here. So you've got your phone, radio, you've got compass, climate, all that good kind of stuff. And then on the inside, auto dimming rear view mirror. You've got, let's try to get some light into this, but a spot for your sunglasses. And then the real trick piece is actually the center console. So the center console here has a little switch, and it slides open to reveal a nice wide and open center console area that also ties into the back. And then your armrest, it's slidable just like on the Renegade. Now on to the back of the car is the trunk, which the trunk is quite large. In this segment, almost everything has a nice large trunk, but this is no exception. And then you've got the ski pass through the center. Now, one thing that I don't care for is with the really nice looking sloped roof, it makes it incredibly difficult to get into what is a mid-size sedan. So if you go ahead and open that, the ingress between the roof rack and where the rear seat is pretty tight. And then to get in, you can slide into the back of the car, but it ends up being real tight. And as you can see, my head is pretty close to the roof line. Another challenge with the sloping roofline is in the front seats, you also have some headroom issues. I'm not a very tall person. However, I've got the seat all the way down in its position. I could recline it more, but I like to sit a little more upright. And with this car's option sunroof, which is a really nice feature, I mean, it allows you to see outside of the car. It just adds a whole nother element. It makes the headliner come quite a bit further down. So if we take a look, the headliner here, you can see there's a good maybe 3 or so inches, maybe 3 to 4 inches of distance between the headliner and the glass. And that's to accommodate all of the mechanism as well as the sunshade that's able to come back forward. That makes for only a little bit of room between my head and the headliner here. And if I was a taller person, that means that I would definitely have to be running the seat reclined back to be able to fit comfortably. One of the most fun parts about this car is actually in the engine bay. So what we have here is a 295 horsepower V6 with 265 foot-pounds of torque. So incredibly ample for a mid-size car. And it's actually made it up to a ZF 9-speed traditional automatic that actually responds really well. Now, the other neat thing is the car is set up with all-wheel drive. So it does drive all 4 wheels. And when you put it into sport mode, the sport mode actually allows 60% of the power to go to the rear wheels. So the car actually feels really sporty and really engaging when you have it placed into that sport mode. So before we get this out on the road, let me go through a couple of the features as you get the car started up. So here, we just have the keyless, so you just go ahead and press the start button. Starts right up like normal. Turn off our radio here. This particular one does have the smaller screen. And down into the center here, we've got our radio controls, our traction control, all that kind of stuff. And then of course, if we get this focus back in, the drive selector. So this was something that I know Chrysler was kind of proud of because no other cars in its class at the time had a drive selector. In many ways, I would just prefer a good old-fashioned handle. I have found myself accidentally putting this into park when I wanted to be going into reverse, and in certain instances, I'm sure that could be a challenge. Now, when we use this, park, reverse, neutral, and drive all work like normal. And to get into sport mode, you have to press down and twist it over. Now, one of the things that I do find annoying is it automatically turns off the traction control when you go into sport mode. And one of the features of sport mode is it actually allows you to hold gears. So not only can you use the paddle shifts to be able to set the gear that you want to be in, but even if you're driving in that gear for a while, it's not going to automatically revert back to automatic. So that means every time you put it into sport mode, you're going to have to select the traction control back on just to be safe while you're out on the road. So let's go ahead and get started on our test ride here. So right now we're in park. All you have to do is just spin the dial to drive and off the car goes. When we pull out, I'm going to give it a fair amount of gas just so you can see what normal real world acceleration is like. The car is fairly potent, so we're just going to turn onto the street here, mash the gas, 30, 50, and that's enough when we're on this type of road. So it gets up and goes pretty well, and the sound of the car, while not super exciting, actually is pretty good. So overall, the driving dynamics of the car, it drives well. It feels pretty good for sure. The steering is fairly tight on the car. There are a few squeaks and rattles, which is an unfortunate thing for a car that's 2,400 miles old, but you know, that kind of comes with the territory. Now, this car I've had, like I said, for about a week, and I've put about 300, maybe 350 miles on it, so I've gotten a chance to use a lot of the things. Now, like we're driving right here, the transmission has gone way down into low gear. We're running at maybe 1,200 RPM, it looks like, at 40 miles per hour. And so when you step onto the gas, it has to think for a while, before it starts going again. So it really does have some lag, and that's where that sport mode I was talking about is pretty nice. So if we put it into sport mode, so press down, shift over, it activates or rather turns off the traction. We'll turn that right back on just because there's really no reason not to use that on a normal road. But when you're in sport mode, the reaction time and the gear selection is quite a bit different. So we're still going about 40 miles an hour. Now we're at about 1,700 RPM, which means when I step down onto the gas, it starts going a lot quicker. So it really changes the tune of the transmission. So we're now on to a nice small back road. So I'm going to go ahead, press it down, put it back into sport, and let me show you how the manual paddles work. So at this point, if you just press on one of the paddles, it's going to bring up the gear display, and now you're into manual mode. And what's neat is it'll actually hold the gear. So I can shift even down into first gear at about 20 miles per hour, which in the normal driving mode, while you can put it into manual mode, it would never allow you to do that. But so you can get on the gas, knock out some shifts. This is a back road, so we're not going to go super fast here or anything, but it's a neat thing. And you can, of course, keep upshifting. We're now into fourth as you want. And if you press down on the gas, it stays in gear. And that's something that so many of these automatics that have manual mode really don't let you do. This actually allows you to stay in a gear, and it holds it almost like a manual. And so coming from a Renegade owner that drives a manual transmission, that's a nice feature. But so going up a hill here, knock it down into second, and off you go. And really just a fun car because it's got so much torque. With the 265 foot-pounds of torque in this mid-size car, it definitely boogies. It has no problem getting up and going. Well, thank you for taking the time to watch this review of my Chrysler 200S rental car. It's been a fun car so far. I have no idea how long I'll have it. So if you start seeing Chrysler 200 content, that would be the reason why. But overall, I think while this car had an asking price of $34,000, what I can say is if you buy one of these used, it's a great deal. So this car has lost almost 45% of its value in the first 2 years. So if you were to buy a 2015, you could get one for a steal right now. And assuming you could get a warranty, just in case it ends up being as reliable as my Renegade, assuming you got that, I think this would be a really fun car in that like $16,000, $17,000 mark. And with that, thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about the car. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to see some more. Who knows how long it'll be a Chrysler channel, but I'm sure we'll get the Jeep back soon and be able to continue doing some mods to that and showing you what it's like.